What's up everyone, Mike from FlightClub. In this video, I'll be reviewing the TBS Unify Nano. This thing is tiny. It's only 13 by 14.5 by 3 millimeters tall and weighs like 1.4 grams. It has power outputs of 25 and 50 milliwatts, and it has smart audio. So you can change the channel band power with the LUA script or Betaflight OSD. Because it has smart audio, it doesn't even have a button installed on here. I mean, they do include a little button that you can try to solder on yourself, but I tried it and man, it's not easy. It's really hard. But with the smart audio, you really don't even need a button on here. Compared to the TBS Unify Race, which is the VTX that I've been using in all my other quads, it looks like it's about a quarter of the size, or maybe even less than a quarter of the size. I'm not sure if TBS designed this VTX to be a race VTX and a full-size 5-inch quad, because they released it at the same time as the TBS tiny camera, which is meant for like tiny hoop-size quads. The Unify Nano requires a input voltage of 4.5 to 5 volts. So if you do connect it to the battery, it'll fry it. I made that mistake the first time I tried to install this. I swapped out my Unify Race, which can take battery voltages, with the Unify Nano. I powered it directly off the battery and it killed it. So make sure when you're hooking this thing up, make sure you power it off a 5-volt source. Most flight controllers these days do have some kind of 5-volt out, so you can just use that. The output levels are only 25 and 50 milliwatts versus 25 to 200 on the Race. But if you're building a multi-GP race quad, 25 milliwatts should be suffice, because most races are limited to 25 milliwatts anyway. So I'll be testing the range of this Nano versus the Race VTX on 25 milliwatts. And this is the quad that I'll be testing it on. This is the quad that I built last week. I'll put a link in the description below. But basically, it's running the Cicada 30 amp all-in-one, the Foxer Aero Micro, the T-Motor Air 40 2450 kV, the left-hand CP Axie UFL, and I actually did this video backwards. I already swapped out the VTX, but in the first video that I'll be showing, it'll be running the TBS Unify Race, and then I actually already did the swap. It's got the TBS Unify Nano now, so I'm gonna run both VTX on the exact same quad at the field, running a set pattern, and then we'll see how much interference or what kind of range you get on both of these VTX. What's up guys, so I'm at the park right now, and this is the track that I'll be running. I'm basically just going to run a set path around these two soccer fields over here. First I'm going to run it with the TBS Unify Race set at 25 milliwatts, and then we'll run it, and then I'll come back and do a quick field swap on the exact same quad, and I'll swap out the VTX for the TBS Unify Nano, both set at 25 watts. So this is what I'll be running. These are two soccer fields right here. I'm gonna fly down this sidewalk, go past like 4 of these light poles, go around, circle around, and then come back around this way and come back, and then we'll see how much interference we get. Alright, so I just flew the quad with the TBS Unify Race at 25 milliwatt. Now we're gonna swap it out for the TBS Unify Nano. As you can see here, I've got the Nano heat shrinked, and I got the wires coming over the top. The reason I put them over to the top is because that way you have a little flat surface on the bottom, so you can double side tape on it. So the way I have it set up is I have the 5-volt over here, ground, and then I got the video, and then the smart wire, and then I got everything pre-cut and pre-tinned, so I'm just going to solder it onto my board. So first I'm just going to remove my TBS Unify Race, pull that off, and I'm going to undo the Bondic. So I just got to remove some of this stuff so I can put some new one later. So you can see this stuff is not that hard to remove. Actually, this is the Bondic stuff that I've been using. antenna. Alright, so first I'm going to remove the wires for the TBS Unify Race. So I'm just using this busted XT60 soldering iron. See how well it works. It's pretty windy out here, so I'm not sure how hot it's going to get. But it looks like it's hot enough, so let's start. So first I'm going to remove the power. And this soldering iron is nowhere near as hot as the one I have at home. But when you're in a pinch, you gotta do what you gotta do. Alright, this iron's not getting hot enough to remove this, so I'm just gonna get some wire cutters and cut this part off later. So I'm just gonna remove the smart audio and then the video. Alright, since the TBS Unify Nano requires 5 volt, on the TBS Race I was powering it directly off the battery, but the Nano requires 5 volt, so I'm going to use the 5 volt pad right here for the LED to power the VTX. So this looks like the 5 volt right here, and then ground. Alright, so got 5 volt here. And then my white is going to be the smart audio. And then video goes to video. And you can see it's crazy windy out here. Alright, so that should be it. So let me power it up and then make sure everything is working. Alright, so I'm gonna mount this like that. Put my screws on. Put my antenna back on. And then I'm just gonna snap this in right here. And move this around to make sure. And then I'm gonna put Bondic on here just to keep it, just to make sure it'll stay on. Alright, so that's it. I will, when we get back into the office, I'll do a closer, a better look at this to show you how I hooked it up. But on the field, this should work. So let's power it up and give it a go. Alright, so sorry about the crappy video earlier when I swapped out the VTX. It's hard to do that in the field. But now that we're in better lighting with a better camera, I'll show you how I set it up. Alright, so basically I got the UFL connected right here with Bondic, so I'm just going to remove that. So you can see this Bondic stuff is pretty easy to take off. And then I got the 5 volt. I'll show you the board later, but this is the 5 volt. Coming in on the power, and then I got ground, and then the yellow wire is video, and then the white wire is the smart audio. So from left to right it goes smart audio, video. Skip these two. I think one is like ground and the other one is like video out, but for this setup I'm not using it. And then it goes ground and then 5 volt, and then I'll show you how it's set up. So here's the power. I'm powering the 5 volt off the LED output. So the LED output on the board is 5 volts, and then the ground's right next to it. And then the smart audio I got hooked up to TX6, which is for my Betaflight OSD. And then I got the video hooked up to the video out on the Cicada. So it's pretty straightforward setup. So the Nano is no doubt tiny and weighs almost nothing. The video quality is great for its size, but I found that the video on the Race was slightly better. You can tell when we're at like that fourth light post, you can see a lot more static with the Nano. And I actually still prefer the wire harness on the Race. Not that the Nano is hard to install, it's just slightly more inconvenient needing to power it off a 5 volt. And if the VTX ever goes out with the Race, you can just unplug the harness and then just swap out the VTX and plug in a new one. The Nano requires you to unsolder and then solder a new one back on. So going by the quick test that I just ran, would I switch all my existing TBS Unify Races for the Nano just to save 3 grams, lose the ability to have 200 milliwatts, have slightly more interference, and save $5? Probably not. Unless space and weight are an issue, say like if you're building a sub 150 millimeter quad, I really don't see a reason to swap your TBS Unify Race with the Nanos for a 5-inch quad. Unless you're building a micro quad like a tiny hoop or a 2-inch quad, the Nano would be perfect. The range and clarity on the Nano would blow away anything, any existing micro VTX out there, and you have the ability for smart audio. So for 25 bucks, if you're building a micro, this would be the VTX again. Otherwise, I would just stick to your Unify Race for your 5-inch quads. So I hope you found this video helpful. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for watching.